Okay, Golden Doves, class 84, page 45, studying the certain things about the grammatical aspects of the third person that tell us how we view the third person in Semitic thinking, in Hebrew in particular. There's another aspect of the Hebrew verb, page 45 on the top of the page. I think I said that already. I haven't had enough coffee for the day, so after this I'm making myself another espresso. There's another aspect of the Hebrew verb bearing on the character of the third person, which is what we're studying, the character of the third person, what the character of the third person teaches us, how the Hebrews view the third person. Semitism noticed a similarity between the third person masculine singular of the perfect verb. So the perfect verb would be in past tense, something that doesn't have to be in past tense, but just easier to conceptualize, something that already happened. Hu yashan, for example, right? That's the third person masculine singular. And the nominal forms. The nominal forms are stative verbs, verbs that describe a particular state, right? This is particularly evident in the Hebrew nominal verbs of the katel form, because you have three types of verbs. In Hebrew, you have the pa'al form, which is an active verb. We're not dealing with active verbs. That's an actual action. Hu bana bayit, he built a house. Right? But then you have two stative forms of the verb. You have pa'el and pa'ol. So it would be, for example, hu ra'ev. Ra'ev is describing a state. Hu ra'ev. Yagorti. Yagorti means I was afraid. Yagor. He was afraid. That's a state. It's not an action. Or hu ayef. Ayef is in the katel form, right? So it's a state. It's a state of verb because it describes a state. So you have the katel form, pa'el form, let's say katel. You have the katol form, which is the pa'ol form. And they're both stative verbs, right? So if you look at the katel form is very similar morphologically and notionally to the third person, because the morphologically means the shape of the word. So for example, you say hu ra'ev. So ra'ev is a state of a form of the verb, right? And ra'av is the noun, hunger. Hu ra'ev means he is hungry. The noun ra'av means hunger. Now you notice how morphologically they're almost identical. Resh ayin bet, both words are resh ayin bet. Notionally, they're also very identical because the notional means the actual meaning. Hu ra'ev, that the meaning of he is hungry means he has hunger. Ra'av means hunger. So you see that morphologically and notionally the verbs are very similar. So again, I'm just going to read that sentence again. This is particularly evident in the Hebrew nominal verbs of the katel form, in which the third person and the noun, the third person, like again, hu ra'ev, is similar to the noun used to describe hunger, right? The coincidence of the nominal form with the conjugation of the third person is a widespread linguistic phenomenon and not exclusive to Hebrew. So you see how the nominal form or the stative form of the verbs in Semitic languages, not just in Hebrew, but in general in Semitic languages, and maybe in other systems as well, in other languages, there is a relationship or a very close similarity between the nominal form, the stative verbs, and the conjugation of the third person, right? So you see how the third person, in a sense, is a non-person, right? Because he's identified with a particular noun almost, and he's subsumed in that noun. So ra'av, hu ra'ev. It's almost like the third person just becomes into the ra'av, right? So the third person doesn't exist. So in relationships, let's take this to the philosophical level. Let's say you don't have a relationship with somebody, so that person wants to speak with you, but they don't want you to speak back. They just want you to talk. They just want to talk and they want you to listen, and you don't have a right to speak back. So that's not dialogue. That's hierarchy. If you're in that type of relationship, it's not a human relationship. It's a relationship which is based on power and hierarchy. I want to speak. No, I want to speak. I don't want you to, I don't want to hear you. I only want to hear myself, right? So that's a type of third person. If somebody speaks to you but you can't speak back, then you're not really a second person, then you're a third person. Because the very idea of dialogue means the same way I recognize my right to speak and express my subjectivity and my perspective, I want to recognize your right to become the first person to express your subjectivity to me as an appreciation of the fact that you're willing to accept my subjectivity and hear me out and listen to me. Right, but it has to be reciprocal. I must be willing to hear your subjectivity and your perspective. That's a human relationship. Oftentimes in relationships, that doesn't happen. Everybody just screams, wants to hear themselves. Nobody wants to hear the other side. Nobody's willing to recognize the subjectivity of the other side, right? So that's why it's so important to understand these ideas, because it tells you when you're spoken to and you can't answer, you're not really a second person, right? The idea of being alive. He was alive, right? He was animated with the ability to speak. He can communicate a subjectivity to another subject and exchange subjectivities with each other in a sense, right? In Hebrew, I, as an absolute pure ego, is designated by the suffix e, so ani achalti. So the e sound expresses the subjectivity of the third person. It appears connected with the prepositions such as li, to me. Li, to me. You see the E sound is in there. Be, again you see the E sound, in me. A me, with me. But you see in all these cases, the me is expressed in the E sound, right? It also appears with the noun, functioning as a genitive. For example, shori. So you can take a noun and you make the noun yours, the possessive form of the noun, by saying shori, my ox. The independent personal pronoun, ani, also contains the suffix ani, right? So an means here and now. I think we said that before. An means here and now, at this moment in this place. That's what an means. E means me. So ani means me at this moment in time, at this space, right? It's an amazing concept. So how you view your own subjectivity. What are you? So what you are is an aware creature that exists in space and exists in a moment, and you're aware of the space and you're aware of the time, and you recognize yourself in this particular context, ani, right? That's what ani means, right? So now you understand what subjectivity is about. I am here now, in here, at this time, and because of this particular circumstance, I have a particular subjective perspective that I want to express to you, and it's unique because I'm the only one here, and now at this moment is me. You can't possibly be here and now. Maybe you can be now, but you can't be where I am at this moment. Maybe later on you'll be here, but then the time would have changed. So ani means I'm here in space and here in time, and the only one that can be in this space and time is only me, by definition, right? It's an amazing concept of subjectivity. We'll continue this in the next class.